On the latest edition of Real Time with Bill Maher, scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson appeared, and I want to play some of the back and forth for you. That was an interesting debate between the two of them. You might know that while Bill Maher on a lot of his Trump takes is accurate, he does sometimes get into this vaccine territory that's not overtly anti-vax. I want to properly characterize him. But something's a little funky. It's been a while since I've heard him talk about vaccines, so I'm honestly not even super clear on what he'd say his clear vax position is. But you'll hear him sort of make the argument. And then Neil deGrasse Tyson pushes back against, leading to an interesting discussion that I want to react to. Here it is. At one point, Bill Maher grabs Neil deGrasse Tyson as the debate unfolds. While you're watching, please do click the subscribe button. You'll notice in my segments, I'm not, except for right now, spending as much time requesting that. I'm not doing a whole thing. Oh, subscribe, because we have crossed 1 million. So I'm going to chill out a little bit. But what's stopping us from getting to 2? What the heck? Thank you all so much.
So that means we're incapable as a species of truly understanding risk. And this goes to like vaccines, okay? I don't want to like poke the bear here, but what I'm saying is,
the bear believes in vaccines, just being skeptical of all medical interventions, as everyone should.
Well, except 99 out of 100 medical interventions, you're not saying, I need a second opinion. If you have tuberculosis, you don't need a second opinion. If you have polyps in your colon...
It's not close to 99%.
It's easily 99%.
It is not.
If you break a femur, you don't get a second opinion on that.
I agree, but that's not most things that happen to people. Lots of things that happen to people, and I'm thrilled that you don't ever have this happen in your life, but and I hope you never do. But trust me, most people at a certain point in their life will need a second opinion.
The second opinion, yes, but that's after you've been through 99 other. I'm trying to put credit back to doctors, where our life expectancy is 3 times what it was 150 years ago, and everyone before 150 years ago
but lower than the rest
organic, and half of them died before they were 35. Yeah, science matters.
Of course it does.
But sometimes you don't sound that way. That's what worries me.
Well, actually, you're the guy. You're the guy who doesn't understand why the NBA team can't beat the Lakers. So I don't know. You're supposed to be the scientist, and you couldn't even admit that. And as far as medicine goes, I could talk to you this about all day. But again, we do have a party to get to. But this is not your field. You're not a doctor.
No, but I'm a scientist. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's not a doctor.
No, hold on.
That's not a doctor.
I'm a scientist who knows probability and statistics.
When I get a goiter on Uranus, I'll call you.
No, don't call me. But when it's time to assess risk, that's something that comes out of the world of probability and statistics, and scientists are trained in that. And so there's a documentary on PBS.org right now that talks about what it means to accept a risk, or to, like in a vaccine. If you don't want to get a vaccine, that's like walking around with a baseball bat, fine. But if you hit someone with it, that's bad. There's a social contract to not infect other people.
He's into the science moment. I'm ready to drink wine.
Thank you, everybody.
So then they wrap up there, going to some sort of party. And while it is always funny to see Neil deGrasse Tyson's antics, I do appreciate the point he's trying to get across. And Bill Maher has been someone who he identified himself, he's for vaccines, but then he's acting as if Neil deGrasse Tyson's point is that we shouldn't be critical of big, massive pharmaceutical companies. Of course we should, just like all sorts of big companies that first and foremost are trying to make profit. And so where's that going to impact their decision making? Fine. But, which by the way has been something the left's been talking about for a very long time. But that's different than this war against expertise. That is not what Bill Maher's a warrior of. I'm not characterizing him that way, but I've seen some things, maybe why Neil deGrasse Tyson brought it up, that Maher says that get a little funky is the best word I can think of, and that do bolster a broader pulse in the country that I think can get really dangerous, even if Maher's not trying to play into that. And the pulse that I'm referring to is a war against expertise. Medical professionals, they don't know anything. If a medical professional or figure like Fauci gets a thing wrong, then the bazillions of things they've been getting right and making crazy monumental progress on, extending our life expectancy, helping us to not die of preventable diseases, etc., all that's thrown out the window, and now your MAGA uncle thinks that he can figure out the real truth about everything and the best procedure for every disease himself by searching things on Facebook. And that gets really dangerous. So it's a nuanced discussion of, you always are within your right to question the advice you're getting and to fact check it with anything, with medical related things, but then also just media narratives and studies. My fear is that the whole do your own research phrase from MAGA gets way more into the territory of Twitter research and Facebook research to just tell you what you want to believe than actually understanding how to analyze the study you want to take issue with, right? And if we could bring back a little bit more respect, which doesn't mean blind acceptance, but respect for expertise, respect for medical professionals' work, for scientists and their work, and push back against this, we must take the opposite stance as the scientific consensus, just because then we're not sheep. Well, you're just as much of a sheep, just rejecting everything. You're still blindly following something or someone. Now it's just right-wing influencers. And that I've seen a lot of concern from Neil deGrasse Tyson on, which is a hard thing to discuss because people go, I'm just saying we should make sure we're fact-checking everything. It's like, yeah, okay, but that's not what you're saying. And when you do encourage people to do their own research on a medical consensus, for example, what you really mean is you should blindly take the opposite stance as the consensus. And the work of our experts in so many different fields has made crazy, amazing progress. So let's have some respect for that, and let's have some humility about when we're probably not as qualified as them to understand what's going to serve society best. So again, it's not that we're swearing allegiance to anyone or blindly accepting anyone's views, but I've always believed a key indicator of intelligence is knowing what you don't know. And a lot of people think they know what they don't and have a lot of proud ignorance on things that gets people hurt. That's what we've seen. That was what we saw during the COVID era. People all of a sudden were their own Facebook scientists, and the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world were telling people we know better, and the Republicans ended up dying at much higher rates because they were buying into the nonsense, and it's just so heartbreaking. And if they had abided by the medical scientific consensus, they could have survived. Again, heartbreaking. So then how do we articulate that to people? That you can both be critical of a big pharmaceutical company and understand when experts probably know better than you do, and a consensus among experts is a really compelling thing. I think a lot of people don't have the nuance capabilities to engage with that, and so then we get these huge MAGA influencers, and it's a bummer. Then on Nancy Mace's transgender bathroom obsession, Bill Maher made some good comments.
And they're not even in charge yet. They just won the election already. Big changes in the House. You know, they elected the first transgender person to the House. So immediately the Republicans now have banned her from being able to go to the restroom. Yeah, thank God the adults are back in charge, huh? House Speaker Mike Johnson's being very clear about this. He said all women's facilities, that include women's restrooms and locker rooms and changing rooms, are for biological females only. And right away, Lindsey Graham volunteered to check for gigs. What?
Yeah, so him sort of identifying there the absurdity of this all. Because this was brought up, I want to play again Sarah McBride responding to all these attacks.
I would like my grace to contrast with the grandstanding that we're seeing right now. I would like my approach of respecting everyone to contrast with the disrespect that we are seeing right now. I'd like people to see my competence in governing contrast with their chaos.
Do you follow this rule? Do you adhere to it?
I have already said that I will not use multi-stall women's restrooms in the Capitol. But again, that is my choice here. I always knew that there would be an effort to politicize my use of a restroom. Yeah. And if anyone had thought to ask me about what I was planning on doing, I would have been happy to tell them. Yeah. But again, this is not an issue. And this has never been an issue in this complex. Everything was fine until some members of the small Republican conference majority decided to get headlines and to manufacture a crisis.
I don't know how, as a Republican, you watch Nancy Mace, that it's so clear what she's doing, desperately trying to get headlines and interviews. And Marjorie Taylor Greene doing the same, and some of the other folks doing the same. And then watch McBride's reactions and not go, I think I'm on the wrong side of this. I think I need to chill out a little bit. It's not admirable to create an issue and then solve it in your head. Okay, that's just such a weird thing. They made this an issue and then now are going, we were warriors and we solved it now. It wasn't a thing before. It wasn't a problem. Oh my goodness. Then moving on from that topic, you have this moment from Real Time.
I think they were elected clearly and have a massive mandate, but they have a mandate on a couple of issues, absolutely.
Well,
we should let them do what they do and judge the results. And I'll tell you this, given what they plan to do, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty for them. Do you think that putting tariffs off is not going to put inflation up almost immediately? You don't think that the immigration stuff is going to actually tip the economy down? We could have stagflation in 12 months.
Let's see what happens with the disruptors when the corn lobby starts weighing in, when they want to fix our food, which it definitely does need that. It's not that we are a healthy country. We are definitely not. But the corn lobbies are going to have something, and so is the pharmaceutical industry, and so is every other lobbying firm in this country. The defense contractors, you think they're just going to sit there and take it up the ass when the disruptors come by and say we have to cut the budget by $200 billion? Let's see what happens.
And Republicans have long talked a big talk, and then those very influences cause them to walk a very different walk. But this next point is really important to respond to what the guy there said.
Al Gore had a team of professionals who knew the government, knew where.
But they didn't do it.
No, look, they left the government. I was part of that effort on Capitol Hill, and the administration left the country in a good place in terms of the deficit.
And the budget.
Zero.
Right.
So did Obama. He left the country in a good place.
Yes.
And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They're also leaving a lot of gravy on the table. Let's see what the Trump administration will do with all of that.
Yeah. So if this is the ideal, given that Trump won, which is not the ideal, but the best case scenario is that, as Maher referenced, the disruptors decide they're not as interested in disrupting, and then they just decide they're going to take credit for all the things that Biden-Harris handed them. As a reminder, Biden-Harris inherited a really difficult situation, Trump mismanaging that pandemic. They then spent years fixing everything up and handing it to Trump again. And now Trump if the economy stays as good as it is now, we'll say that's because of him. So we have to be prepared to call that out. It's going to be infuriating. I'm going to scream about it, but they're going to take credit for metrics that no rational person could attribute to Trump's governance when the entire process of getting us there was under Biden-Harris. It's what Trump did whenever he took over the Obama economy. It's a terrible, horrible, destroyed, disgusting. Oh, I've been in power for 6 months now. It's the best economy ever, and I've nailed it. That's what we're going to see. Tell me your thoughts in the comments.